Welcome to myeyacademy.com. To understand this 7-step interpretation guide, you need to study the first 5 videos which tells you about the basics of corneal topography. Do subscribe to the channel to see all those videos. This is a 7-step interpretation guide which helps you to interpret corneal topography step by step. Now here are the 7 steps. First of all, what is normal? Background knowledge, overall shape, elevation maps, pachy maps, sap maps, and indices. So let's start with normal. Details of the normal cornea are VPL 1.8, but I'll just tell you briefly about the normal cornea in this video. Thickness of the normal cornea is 550 micron in the center. And then, where is the thinnest location? That is the mnemonic. Where is it? It is inferior temporal to the center of the cornea. And then remember another mnemonic, the coid for you, that after the central, it is the outer which is more thick, then the inner, then the down, and then the up. So that's how the corneal thickness changes from center to the periphery. Now number 2, get the background knowledge. You need to have a background knowledge before you start interpreting the corneal topography. Like you need to know the history, the age, and the slit lamp findings. Diseases at the age of 18 are usually different at the age of 50. Same if you examine the cornea, then the scars on the cornea may give abnormal shape and you don't have to think of the other diseases. Same is the vision, the pinhole improvement, and the refraction are important for the interpretation of the corneal topography. Then you need to understand the different parameters on the corneal topography printout, like this is the right eye, the 3mm rings, the 5mm ring, and that helps you for interpreting corneal topography. All of them are mentioned in VPL 1.4, which explains the parameters of the corneal topography. Then you need to also know the pupil. Where is the pupil? Where is the thinnest location? Where is the pachy apex and the QS value? All these are explained in video 1.4. So before you start interpreting, you need to have this background knowledge. Number 3 is the overall shape on the 3 maps. By 3 map means elevation map, pachy map, and sap map, which is sagittal, axial, or power map. Now remember, it's not only the cool bow tie which is important. You need to look for the other normal patterns on the sap map. Plus you need to look for the shape patterns on the pachy map and on the elevation maps. So remember, it's not the bow tie that is important. You need to look for the pachy maps and for shape on the elevation maps. All this is explained in overall shape patterns in video VPL 1.5, which you need to see in detail before seeing this video. The overall shape is evaluated in 4 steps. One is the Q value, which gives you the overall shape of the cornea, whether it's prolate, hyperprolate, or oblate. Then is the curvature maps, then is the elevation maps, and then is the pachy maps. Let's see them one by one. These patterns which are highlighted, these are my own developed terms which I'm introducing to the corneal topography system, and they have not been used before. These are cool uniform shape, cool symmetrical bow tie, hot bow tie, red blood, cool islands, hot islands, embryo type, donut shaped, CCC, or central cool concentric rings, and hot concentric rings. These are all the new terms which I've introduced for the corneal topography. Remember, for the overall shape, less than minus 0.26, I mean more negative than the minus 0.26, is suspicious. So this one is minus 0.62, so that is suspicious. Minus 1.8 is very suspicious, but minus 0.10 is not suspicious. It is within the normal limits. Then is the overall shape on the curvature map. Look at that, the cool uniform shape and the cool symmetrical bow tie. A vertical cool symmetrical bow tie, oblique symmetrical bow tie, and horizontal bow tie, and cool uniform shapes. All these shapes are normal, while the abnormal shapes are asymmetrical irregular, asymmetrical inferior steep, asymmetrical superior steep, sracs, and asymmetrical sacs. All these are abnormal shapes. Then you need to look for the other shapes like the keratoconus types, hot spot, oval hot spot, red blood, irregular, superior steep, inferior steep, and you look for the other recognized patterns. All these tell you that there may be an abnormal cornea. Then you don't only look for the curvature maps, you need to look for the shape on the elevation map, and this is the normal hourglass appearance. These are the cool islands and these are the hot islands. Cool islands are normal, hot islands are abnormal. Then you need to look for the skewed hourglass appearance. This is the skewed hourglass appearance as compared to the normal hourglass. And then the embryo shaped, which is a variation of skewed hourglass, and then the donut shaped, which again means abnormal cornea. In addition to that, you need to look for the shape pattern on the pachy maps as well. And remember, CC rings, central cool concentric rings, and these are green CCC rings, yellow rings. All these rings tell you that the shape is normal. But look at the hot concentric rings. If they are concentric rings but it is hot in color, that tells you that there may be an abnormality. And then you need to look for the other shapes. Look at that. These are the cool colors, but these are not central. So CCC means central cool concentric ring, but this one is not central. This one is not central, and these are irregular shape, displaced ones, and bell shaped. All these are abnormal shapes. So the message is, don't only look for the shape of the cornea on the SAP map, do also look for the pachy maps and elevation maps. Then we go to the number 4 and important. Ignore the SAP maps and first look for the elevation maps, which are more important and which give you more information. And this is clearly described in VPL 1.3, which is maps and their importance. You need to have a clear idea of best fit sphere and best fit toric ellipsoid, and that is well explained in VPL 1.1. The green one is the normal cornea or best fit sphere, and the yellow line is actually a patient's cornea, and you compare it with the best fit sphere. Look at that, it's elevated here, so this is the elevation, and it is depressed here, so this is the depression, and the elevation is represented in red color and depressions are represented in blue colors. Now this is a best fit sphere, which is a standard normal cornea, and the green one is the patient's cornea. Look at slight elevation here, which is the posterior elevation, and the front elevation is less as compared to the posterior elevation because the corneal epithelium gets thin here, and that's why always anterior elevations are less as compared to the posterior elevations. The anterior elevation or the posterior elevations are presented in red color. Now this is best fit sphere. So what is best fit toric ellipsoid? This is best fit toric ellipsoid, which is prolate in shape, which is elevated in the center and slightly flatter at the periphery. So this is the actual shape of the cornea, and we call it best fit toric ellipsoid. Here In this slide, the patient's cornea is represented in green, and in the top one, it is being compared with the best fit toric ellipsoid, while in the bottom one is being compared with the best fit sphere. Now, the guidelines on the elevation map, remember the mnemonic 12 to 18 plus 5. 12 to 18 plus 5 means 12 to 18 for the anterior elevation is suspicious, while the plus 5, which is 17 to 23, is suspicious for the posterior elevation. Now usually the bottom one is posterior elevation and the top one is anterior elevation. So on the top one up to 12 is normal, 12 to 18 is suspicious, and more than 18 is indicative of keratoconus, while 5 more on the posterior elevation map, which means up to 17 is normal, 17 to 23 is suspicious, and more than 23 is highly indicative of keratoconus. So remember the mnemonic 12 to 18 plus 5, 12 to 18 for the anterior elevation and 5 more for the posterior elevation. Then the step 5 is parameters on the pachy map. We have already discussed the shape, and the CC rings are here, cool central concentric rings. Then first of all, you need to look at the superior inferior at 5 mm circle. Look at that. Superior at 5 mm circle is 696, while the inferior is 699. So the difference is less than 30 micron, which is normal. That's you need to look for that. Then is the thinnest location. The thinnest location here is 532 micron, which is more than 470, so it's again normal. Then you need to look for the thickness at the pachy apex as compared to the thickness of the thinnest location. It should be less than 10 micron. Look here, 536 and 532, so the difference is less than 10 micron, which is normal. Then you need to look at the y coordinate. The y coordinate is plus 0.76 here, which means the thinnest location is displaced upwards. Usually the thinnest location is displaced downwards, and the y coordinate is in minus, which is indicative of keratoconus, but sometimes the cone is displaced up, like in superior steep, and the y coordinate becomes plus. Then finally, the thinnest location difference between the right and left eye, the difference should be less than 30 micron, so you need to look for the both eyes. So these are the guidelines or parameters that you need to look at the pachy maps. And after you have made your mind on the elevation and pachy maps, you need to look at the SAP maps, which is sagittal or axial maps. And now the parameters on the SAP map. First of all, the K max. The K max should be less than 47.2. This one is K1, K2 and Km. The K max is a bit down on the topographic map. You can see that in the video on the parameters. Then is the SRAX. Look at the bow ties. This prong of the bow tie is in this direction. The other one should have been straight to it, but this one is actually like this. So the angle between the two is more than 22 degrees. So this means the SRAX is more than 22, which is an abnormal or suspicious finding. Then you need to look at the superior inferior difference. It should be less than 2.5 diopters. Like the superior one is here on the 5 mm ring, and the inferior one is here at the 5 mm ring, and the difference should be less than 2.5 diopter. Then the inferior superior difference, like the inferior one is here and the superior one is here, that difference should be less than 1.5 diopters. Then you need to look for the corneal astigmatism on the either surface. This is the cornea front. This is the front cornea. Astigmatism is 1.8. The same should be on, or less than 6 should be on the posterior surface as well. So the astigmatism of more than 6 diopter on either the anterior or posterior surface of the cornea is suspicious for the keratoconus. And then is the against the rule or with the rule. Remember the mnemonic? V and another V. So the vertical is with the rule, and with the rule is a good astigmatism, while against the rule, which is horizontal bow tie, is suspicious for the keratoconus or abnormal cornea. So these are the guidelines on the SAP map. And at the end, you need to look for the indices. The indices are based on the parameters that we have just studied. So these are very important, and you need to look for the video for the indices as well. Remember, the indices are based on the readings. Indices take into account more than one criteria, so they're very reliable. And the indices based on elevation and pachy maps are better than the indices which are based on the SAP maps, which are the older indices. For the indices, you need to look for the video 1.7. Now look at the indices. These are the pentacam indices, which are Bellin-Ambrosio display, CTSP, PIT, and PPI, and more. So these are the pentacam indices. Then RMS, SI, KV, and BCVs are the cirrus indices. Then the Galili indices are AAI, SAI, KPI, and PPK. These are all the Galili indices. And these indices, these are the general indices. These are not patent indices by any company. So the KISA, KD, and SI, these are the general indices which are not property of any company, and these are the general indices. Now the importance of the indices: distinguishing keratoconus from the normal, 100% sensitivity with a bad D, and IHD and KI, which are the pentacam, SLF and BCV, which are the cirrus indices, and PPK, which are the Galili indices. So these indices have got 100% sensitivity for distinguishing keratoconus from the normal, so they are very reliable and very important to understand. Then there are some subclinical cases which may or may not be abnormal. Only the bad D and SLB, bad D on the pentacam and SLB on the cirrus, they have got 100% sensitivity for distinguishing subclinical cases. So indices are very important. Thank you very much for being with me, and do watch the video on indices, which is a very important video. Thank you very much for your feedback. Thank you.